Yeah. Okay. All right. Hi there, Facebook. It's Kamal Fernandez here with a very special guest, and I use the word special, operative word. I'm waiting for people to join. I'm going to check on Facebook, but it is the one and only, thank the Lord, Nando Brown. Let me just. You're probably wondering what he's doing in my living room. So am I, to be truthful, but that's the quality of course. Where the hell? Oh, come on. Why are you not coming up on Facebook?
You're right. You stop doing, Grandpa.
There's a word. There's a word.
If you push like that, it will zoom in.
Thanks. I've even given him the bigger chair because he specifically asked for it. Now we're the equal size. Look at you, twat. Anyway, we're coming out live on Facebook. Hopefully people will join me. I know it's an awkward time of the day. This was a spontaneous live. I said to Nando, are you up for it? And, you know, he's always the type to shy away from the camera. I thought I twisted his arm. I promised him, you know, cash and other favours which we won't discuss. But he's agreed to do it. So you're probably wondering why Nando is in my living room. We've just had a really great conversation for one of many that he's had with people in this world. For SOCs, which is, what the hell does SOCs stand for? Nobody actually knows.
School of Canine Science, come on.
Yeah, School of Canine Science, which is Nando, Joe and Dean's project, which they've been in fruition for 3 years.
No, well, this course is a 3-year course, but
how long have you been
running? 6 years.
Wow, really?
Yeah, man. It's mad, isn't it?
That is mad.
Yeah.
Time's flies. So, and as part of this next leg of what SOCs is offering, they are going around. Nando has been going around, literally travelling the world. You've probably seen him on Facebook, those of you that know Nando, and having conversations with people in the industry that obviously they respect and admire. And I managed to, I don't know how I got in there as well, you know, but talking to people from different viewpoints, having really, really interesting conversations. So you've spoken to me, Sarah
Fisher, we spoke to Simone Muller, Michael Shikashio.
So Sarah Fisher, she's from, what was her conversation? What was that conversation?
So it was talking specifically about free work from the angle of dog to human aggression. So something I've got no experience in, outside of the remit of most dog trainers, and how it could positively benefit a dog that is like aggressive to humans.
Sarah, she's just absolutely
she's so good for the soul.
Yeah, she is, isn't she? She's just, you feel when you're around Sarah, you just think, I'm such a crap human being, because this is the epitome of what a good human is, don't you?
Yeah, it's so
I just feel bad about myself when I'm around Sarah, but hey, that's another story. But she's great. Yeah, Sarah.
Shikashio.
Yeah, Michael Shikashio.
Dog stuff.
Awesome, amazing speaker. I'm assuming most people have heard of Michael Shikashio. That's a sweeping assumption. Incredible speaker. Brilliant at what he does. He does a lot of dog-to-dog aggression, dog-to-people aggression as well.
We just honed in on dog stuff.
Perfect. Okay, good.
And then we had Simone Muller talking about predation.
Yeah.
And
so specifically using reinforcement-based techniques to deal with predation.
Yeah, which is which was really interesting, because she was saying in Germany it's like a common thing. They banned e-collars in 2018.
Wow, interesting.
So they had to come up with an alternative way of doing it.
Wow.
So that was a really good conversation. These conversations are like between an hour and 3 hours long. Ours was three hours today. So Milena Del Martini. Separation anxiety. A different setup to the way that we do it. And again, that's kind of the point, is we go,
absolutely,
this is what we do, but there's shitloads out there going to look at everything. Who else are I going to see?
Dunbar.
Ian Dunbar.
Great Ian Dunbar.
Like, just, that was
What was that conversation
incredible.
about? What was that topic?
We were specifically just talking about dog aggression in general.
Okay.
But it was almost just like a story time.
Really?
You know, story time with Grandpa. It was wicked. Like, I loved it.
Yeah.
And he's such a nice,
charming,
witty,
really great speaker.
Brilliant.
So engaging.
Yeah,
he's great.
Kim Brophy, and we looked at resource guarding. I've had Tom Candy looking at canine compulsive disorder. So some really, really good speakers, and there's a few that we're planning with.
Cool.
not necessarily ready to tell everyone about
perfect.
it.
Awesome. So, okay, so somebody wants to find out about those, how do they access that stuff? Because it isn't going to be free on the internet per se, like as in you can't go to YouTube and access it.
No.
So how can people check that out if they want to sign up for that content?
If they want to do if they want to listen to these conversations, there's only available to people in the Behaviour Bible course, which is one of the courses that we offer from our online platform.
And can they join at any point then?
They can join at any point,
Okay, cool.
but there's 3, so you don't have to do all 3 years. There's 3 years worth of content. But some people are choosing just to do the last year.
Okay.
There is, and the last year is where all these conversations are going to be hosted.
Yeah.
There is a discount on at the moment. So if you go on to caninescience.online, you'll find all the information that you need.
I'll put that in the comments, Canine Science, so check that out. But our conversation was about my passion project, which is Reactivity. And as I said in the conversation, I stumbled into it. It wasn't my intention, but it's something that I've sort of grown really passionate about. And really great conversations, a conversation about my different slant on Reactivity, and also is both of our experiences in this world. But what really provoked me to ask Nando to do it live was a lot of the questions that Nando asked was about, you know, why I choose to train the way I do, specifically for Reactivity, as opposed to other techniques. And I thought it would be really interesting because it's obviously something that I talked about, I posted about recently, about why I choose not to use aversives in the way in which I train. And I thought it'd be interesting to have that conversation with Nando, because having come from a balanced background, and how you've changed and evolved, and obviously how that conversation is probably still relevant because of the sport that you now partake in, where the use of aversive tools is very much the dominant approach, would you say? That's
100%.
Yeah, the dominant approach to training, and how and why you're choosing it to do differently. So, let's just start the conversation with, so just giving you a bit of background. Probably most people that, you know, follow you on social media will probably have heard the conversation previously about your path into training. So you started off as...
Started off as a pet dog trainer, but the classes were based around working trials, and the club that I worked at ran a load of security courses, so there was a lot of sporty type stuff going on, and I did the security courses for fun, not for a job, and I got into that originally through having a reactive dog, and I was
the
Corso. I had a Cane Corso, and he was a fucking nightmare, and I was taught to put a chain on him, take his head off, and all that kind of stuff, and we learnt various techniques like spray collars and prong collars and choke chains predominantly. And then for me, when I put that dog to sleep, I felt really fucking guilty. Because I was...
So did you put him to sleep because of Reactivity?
No.
Okay.
So I put him to sleep. He actually went in for a totally unrelated operation, and when they opened him up, the vet was like, he's in bits inside. He's in terrible shape. He's got a disease which was eating away at his skull.
Oh my God!
Like there was loads of shit wrong. She was like, it's unethical to bring him back round.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. So I didn't even get the chance to say goodbye.
Wow.
Like, it was.
That must have really been a mess.
Savage, mate. It was savage, and that like played on me for a long while. I felt really guilty about being so hard on him, especially as half of that stuff was probably contributing to his behaviour.
Right, yeah.
So,
but looking, like, okay, I'll start. Did any of the stuff actually work?
I suppressed his behaviour enough that I could
manage him.
Yeah, manage him. And there were times where we would put him in a paddock, a small paddock with like 10 other dogs, and he would
react.
No, he'd keep himself.
Oh, okay, right.
Like, but actually, when I was walking down the street, he was still trying to take people's faces off.
It's contextual. So
yeah,
you put him in
massively contextual.
Which is, I think you see a lot of that on social media, where you see a dog that's reacting or previous, and then voila, it's around a group of 25 dogs, and it's behaving like a church lamb. Yeah,
exactly.
But
that.
you take it down the street, high street, and bam, it nails, you know, Mrs. Smith and her kids just walking around their own business. So yeah, absolutely. So effectively, at that point, was it his passing that made you reflect, or were you contemplating? I'm not sure this feels right.
No, I was all in, mate.
Yeah,
I was all in. Like it satisfied my ego. Yeah. It suppressed the behaviour enough that I felt like I had control over him, and reinforced me massively. Yeah. But it wasn't till he went that I kind of went, oh fuck.
Wow, like,
really? It properly hit me as well, because I gave him a fucking hiding. Like I gave him a proper hiding, and I was like, I will never treat another dog like that. And I remember, like, they put him to sleep, and I was with his body, and I just told him, like, I said, I won't ever do that again. Like,
wow,
I will never fucking do that again. I'm so sorry. Like, I was bawling my eyes out in bits. Yeah. So,
but sorry, interjecting. Obviously that particular outcome made you reflect. But the truth be told, if that hadn't happened, you probably would have not necessarily stayed in that same path. Yeah. You probably would have just kept on doing what you're doing because 100%. It appeared to work.
Yeah. And there were a couple of different things that like chipped away at what I was doing. I went, so that opened up the opportunity for me to go and learn from new places. Mm-hmm. And I went to a Sarah Whitehead clicker training workshop. Mm-hmm. And I remember being the only fella there, and I was sitting there, and I just thought, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, I'm sitting surrounded by these girls that clearly can't train fucking dogs. And she had sussed me out, I think, and she gave me a clicker, and I had a 14-week-old husky puppy, and she was like, we're training it to down, and this is the system, and it was a practical course, so I was having a go, and then she came over to me and she went, what have you taught this dog to do? I said, well, go into a down position. And she went, if you actually look, every time you click, the dog stays down, but it's switching from its left hip to its right hip. And at that stage in my career, I was like, fuck, and she was like, how would you do that if we weren't using this? And I was a bit like, I have no idea. So that kind of made me go, maybe I need to be a bit more humble here. And go and learn. And I just went on a massive learning spree. And
so you weren't a professional dog trainer at this point?
I was, but in a balance. I was taking classes, but for a balance club.
Okay. And how long had you been doing that for then?
At that point, probably about 3 or 4 years.
Wow. So lots of reinforcement for that approach.
Yeah.
And it'd been effective with the dogs that you've been working with.
Yeah. And you get a quick turnaround because you can.
And you were earning a living at it. So stacks and stacks and stacks of reinforcement.
100%.
Yeah.
And then I did what everybody does, that when they cross over they become evangelical.
Yeah, definitely. That was definitely that was your brand at the
follow the lines.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I went through that whole stage of my career, and now I'm a little bit more like depending on what it is that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So a lot of people kind of go, well, force free bite work, you need to speak to Nando, he does mondioing, he's been to nationals, and I'm a bit like, that's a fucking study of one. Yeah. Like, because when people say, can you do it? I say, well, I can get to this with my 2 dogs. Yeah. But until hundreds of people are doing it, like, I don't have the data either way. And then the other side is saying you can't do it because there's nobody that's done it. And I'm going, well, no, that's not true either, because
there has been.
Like, there's been a few, but we also need a load more people.
Yeah, absolutely. So, that brings a really interesting discussion point. So, those of you that are watching that may not be quite aware, so Nando does a sport called mondioing. Mondioing is a combination of obedience and there's a little entity of nose work or scent work in it, and there's protection or bite work. Yeah. So those are the 3. But there's no tracking in mondio. But it's a really, really, really tough sport because the tests are really diverse. The manner in which it's presented is constantly changing, so that you have to do a lot of dog training to be able to do it well. I mean, props to you with your second dog that you've done it with, to be able to go to the nationals at such a in your career, because even that as a relatively green competitor, to embark on a sport with really high, because risk is a lot of dog. With a lot of dog, and then doing it in a new sport, so learning in a whole new set of skills, and then going, I'm going to also do it differently. Takes a lot a lot of guts, really, courage. Did you think like that, or were you just like, well, I'm going to see what happens? Because let's be honest, you could have rawly cocked it up.
Yeah. And I was. It was Fizz that started it. So my first man.
Yeah. Because did you get a one with her?
I went to nationals with her as well.
Oh, okay. So
Fizz and Miss.
Okay.
Both been to nationals, and
she was a dog you talked to later, wasn't it?
So we did working trials to start with, and I got Fizz to be a demo dog, not a sports dog.
Right.
I had no intention of doing competing or anything like that, and I started getting called out on Facebook, and people were like, well, "What you fucking done?" And I was a bit like, "Fair enough." Like,
oh, good for you.
I thought, they're right, so maybe I need to go and fucking step on the field and see if I can put money on my outfits.
And you hadn't done any dog sports prior to that?
I'd done a tiny bit of working trials in the UK with my Dobie, but this is when I was right at the beginning of my career.
Right.
And
that was more traditionally balanced?
Traditional, totally traditional. Right. And I also went to a Mondio club with Zeus, but after I crossed over. So, and I tried, and I didn't have the gumption, and I was so kind of confrontational about it all that I was like,
no, you.
I know.
Confrontational. Anyway.
So I was a bit like,
changed.
I was a bit like I'm gonna go in, and then I was like that because I didn't have enough experience to be able to kind of go, no, I'm not. I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to try this, but now I've found a club which is like they're really on board. They're really open. They're all trained in a balanced method.
Okay, they're balanced. Nobody does anything but the reinforcement.
It's only me.
Wow.
And but like the turnaround is that like quite regularly I'll get people go, how have you done that?
Right.
Like, and how have you done this? And the coach will go, right, the way I would teach this is this, but we need to remove this element, so maybe we try this. And me and him will have a chat for 5 minutes. It's such a fucking great little community. That club is brilliant. It's a really, really nice club. So I'm lucky. I'm fortunate. I'm lucky that I've got people that are open-minded and will train with me.
Open-minded, but so while I haven't competed in a bike sport, a bike work sport, I should say. My boxer was the dog that I'd intended to do a bike work with, but or IGP with, but unfortunately he was plagued with health problems, so he never really got out of the gate. He got a BH. I had a German Shepherd before I'd started training her for IGP, but unfortunately she passed really young. So my experience has always been people from other training philosophies have always been really open, and I understand that because I have a level of experience, they're more a lot of times they're accommodating because they sort of trust that I have an opinion that they're willing to entertain. Well, they might not agree with it, but they're willing to go, okay, Kamal has his thing, we'll run with it. But my experience has always been, I think it's how you bring the conversation up, isn't it? If you are, because it's their world, isn't it? You're at their party, and you're bringing your, your football to their game. You've got to be a little bit like, just courteous, really, and be respectful. That's how they do it. But so with your own dogs, because obviously certainly for Mondia, there is no blueprint to follow for training using reinforcement to do a sport like. There is nothing out there to go. Denise Frenzy's obviously starting that process. I think there's a couple of others. I think Sarah Brewski from the States, she has, Chad Biley has. But have you reached out to them? How have you formed this?
If I'm honest, I've taken most of my learning from what I've experienced before. From someone like Michael Ellis. So I've taken, and I go,
he's a balance trainer,
and I'll go, but he's a balance trainer that's made massive leaps in the sport of Mondio ring, that has taken people from being compulsion based to a more moderate approach.
Moderate approach,
and I've gone, right, well, he uses a prong for this bit, and I'm going to, how can I create the same sort of technique? How can I tweak that so it's going to work for me? So Ellis, Do you know what? I go everywhere and kind of go, I like that, I like this, I'm going to try that, I'm going to try this.
And adapt it to your own philosophies and thinking.
Yeah, and I want to see what can happen.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see what we can do. Like, because until people try it, we don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing. You've got to be a little bit courageous and be willing to. I think that the beauty of being inexperienced or not having had success is you have no failure per se. Like, you have nothing. You're not like if you'd had an MR3 and went to the Worlds training a dog with a balanced approach, and then you went, I'm going to do this new thing.
Yeah.
There's a long way to fall, isn't
there? You've also which
I absolutely understand. A lot of people that are of that way. That again, it's about reinforcement history, and you know the dog that you had, the Kennel Corso that you talked about. It was obviously the circumstances the dog passed, so it made you reflect on those the way in which you trained him. But not everybody has that profound experience, don't they? So it is a matter of having courage or just willing to go, do you know what, I'm going to try this, and if it doesn't work, then I might, if you are that, trying to revert back to an alternative. So being really honest, had you contemplated, I'm going to try this reinforcement-based thing, there's nobody watching, so it's just me and you now. Had you thought, do you know what, I will consider using mild or moderate?
No.
No. Because why?
Because I'd already crossed over at this point.
Okay.
And the people calling me out were balance trainers.
Okay.
So I wanted to go, no, fuck you, I'm going to give this a shot.
Okay. But with the provider, you could fail.
Yeah, but I'm also big enough to go, fuck, I got that wrong.
Okay.
Will I get to anywhere else? I don't know. Will I get a free? I don't know. Will I get it's the problem with that is that the goalposts always change, don't they? Because everybody's like, oh, it's only an ML1, mate.
Yeah.
Like, you ain't got, and when I get a 2, it won't be a 3. It's 3. I haven't been to
Worlds.
Do you know what I mean? So
constantly,
that's why there needs to be hundreds of people doing the sport to go.
But it takes one person to start the conversation and start with people to go, oh, if he can do it, because it takes that. If you don't see it, you can't always visualize it in your head. So I think you need somebody to go, to have the courage to go, I'm going to try it and risk failing.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm the first though. I think there's people in front of me that have given stuff a go. And
I think there's been, but obviously I suppose the thing that is you have obviously a big social media following. You were very vocal about your path. You were very transparent. You went, here's what I'm going to try and do. There is a possibility that you could have all got egg on your face.
100%. And if I'm honest, when I first got Fizz, like I was talking to you about this earlier on, I got Fizz and she was a puppy, and I thought, I've just fucking written myself off here. This is a terrible mistake. Like, she was my first Mally, and I was like, I've screwed up here. I'm not ready for this.
Right.
And we worked through it and got through it, but like it was difficult.
Yeah.
Like, it was really, and Blisk is a totally different dog. He's totally sociable and totally. He's got like he's just a lot easier.
Easier dog.
Yeah, he's stronger in competition. He's stronger in training, but he's easier. She's much smarter. She's much emotionally intelligent, but with that comes problems.
Yeah. So talking about this, because obviously you had you shared your journey with picking her, raising her, etc. Was there moments where you thought, I could fix this really easily using what I used to know?
At the time, no.
Okay.
Because I was still quite...
Yeah.
This is like the be all and end all. This is... I'm right, everyone's wrong.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really open to considering anything else. But I don't think that I had like that. What we seem to say is that it doesn't work like this, but it will work that way, and that's not necessarily the truth. It doesn't always work that way either.
Yeah, definitely. Because that's the thing that when you're talking about using Aversive in any sphere of work, whether it be sports based or behaviour, the argument is always, I suppose, I don't necessarily. The discussion is always, well, in that instance, if you use this technique, it will fix the problem. But that may be a level of truth in it. But how about the other 999 times it hasn't worked?
Yeah.
Can we not, again, when you're talking about data, so there is, all methods have a level of fragility to them, I would say. You know, there is a level, reinforcement-based methods, aversive tools, balance training, they all have a level of failure. Let's be honest, they all have a level of failure. But I suppose for me, the conversation is not necessarily about the data per se as why I choose to train this way. It's because it just sits better with me. If I'm being really honest, you can show me all the data in the world that says you can fix all reactive dogs by using certain tools, and I would still say, but I'm going to choose this way because it just makes it feels better with me. And I think that sometimes I think, because you know the conversation about tools and methods always gets emotive, doesn't it? It always gets like everybody draws their line in the sand.
Yeah.
And if we're really honest, you know, people that use other techniques can say, here's 25 dogs that I've been successfully trained and are happy and live brilliant lives using tools. And I could say, well, here's 25 that you know, have been trained using reinforcement and have achieved the same thing. We can always bring that, but I suppose for me, you just have to be comfortable when you sit on that spectrum.
Yeah.
And my experience of certainly with most, certainly in dog sports, is people are always willing to help. They might not always understand it, but I think most people I've met have been willing to accommodate.
Yeah, and I think like this that doesn't necessarily make us better people.
No.
Because I've met some fucking really nice people on both
absolutely.
sides of the fence.
Absolutely, yeah.
But there's also a massive bunch of dickheads on both sides of the fence.
Yeah. Well, you've been heavily criticised for the force-free community. I know I have.
Yeah.
And vice versa. You kind of go, it's you can't please everybody.
Yeah.
You know?
And I've given up trying to please everybody because I was kind of like this. And now I'm a bit like, do you know what? This is what I believe. This is what I'm going to teach. This is how. This is the proof that I've got. This is the evidence that. And I think that's more important now than it used to be to me. I think. So that's kind of why I don't know where I was going.
So in terms of let's ask the big, because me and you had a discussion when I was cooking Nando some lunch, which I don't do very often, but I do for Nando, about the conversation when you were talking about tools and whether to use them or not is based. The discussion is livestock worrying, predation, etc. So here's the $64 million question: do you think it's possible to train a dog to? We've had this discussion, but it'll be interesting to hear to reflect on it. Do you think it's possible to train a dog using reinforcement-based training to overcome something as extreme as livestock / sheep worrying, etc.?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
And the problem is that there are some dogs, and the amount of variables involved in that question is the dog, the level of predation that you're looking at, the level of management you'd have to put up with. Absolutely. So do you live on a fucking farm surrounded by sheep, or do you live in the centre of London?
Yep, absolutely.
The skill of the handler, the reinforcement history of how long the dog has been doing the behaviour for, that kind of thing.
Yep.
And then you've got, I think, like 90%, and I'm pulling this figure out of my arse obviously, but 90% of dogs are going to go through something like the protocol that we teach, which is reward based, and be massively reliable. Yep. But there is also going to be a percentage of dogs that you're not going to get that from. But I think that works on the other side as 100%. Well. I think they can train 90% of dogs, but there are going to be that. Because of the same variables, absolutely. There's going to be a percentage of dogs that will not go through that. So, no is the answer that I've got. Yeah, absolutely. And that was the conversation we had. So, obviously, Nando and I both had Malinois, and we were talking about our Malinois that we've owned, and we both had several, so that's a valid part of the conversation. We just went up basing our opinion on one dog. We've also had them in the breed for a protracted period of time, and we've had similar other high drive, high energy types of dogs, and I said, there's definitely dogs that I've had in the past, my previous Malinois that had more,
what's the word, risk to them and their desire to chase things. Whereas the dog that I have now, she's so ball motivated and toy driven that I would say she'd be a dog I absolutely. But having said that, my point I was making to Nando was there was situations with that particular dog where I absolutely could have called her off things when they were moving, and it happened to be a sheep. Randomly when I was walking them, a sheep running down the field, all my dogs took after them. I called all dogs, and I did it like, I was they were running towards the main road, but nonetheless they all came back without question. Now, I'm not going to go, right, let me get another sheep and test that theory, because I'm just not willing to take that risk.
Yeah.
But I also know that she was very aware of the sheep in the field, and I could control her and call her off them, but I absolutely know that, I don't absolutely know because she wasn't put in that situation. I don't know if I wasn't there to observe her behaviour, what she would do. So, and you said similar with...
Fizz and risk are so different.
Yeah.
Risk is like in sport, if you were talking about prey drive, like risk has probably got more prey drive than fizz. But fizz is more predatory.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
and that's people don't understand there's two different things, don't they? And in layman's terms, I suppose what you would say is one dog is more real about it.
Yeah. That's
there's a realness, isn't there?
Yeah.
Like they I would say not this because I wouldn't say they lack intensity about the bite, like tugging. It's that predation sequence means more to fizz and thriller than it does to jungle and risk.
Yeah, 100%.
It means more to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My point with that is that fizz. I used to live in Wales, and it was a problem, and I was training it. But if I'm honest, she would have killed one of them sheep if she could have done. Like, she'd have been all over that. And I think the same training, I'd have no problem with risk. Now I live in Spain, and I actually live between two sheep farms.
Right.
So they come up and graze my garden, right? They come right up to the thing. The difference is that in Spain we have livestock guardian dogs, and they mean it. Right. So there's never been a fight or anything like that. Risk has been down and tried to play with them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they're like, we're not playing.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. But
good.
There's one example that I think of where, like everybody says, put your dog on the lead. Right? But I drove to the middle of nowhere. I let 9 dogs out of the van. I crested the top of this little hill, only about 25 metres from the vehicle. And there were a couple of hundred sheep on the other side. And if it wasn't for the livestock guardian dogs who came running up and were like, whoa, I don't think I would have had control over fizz. I would have had control over all the rest of them. Yeah. And actually those dogs went, don't try your luck. And all of my dogs went, fair enough. And I went, come on, let's go. And they all came running back, all jumped in the van, fizz included, no problems. But without those dogs out, I don't know that would have happened. I can't say for certain the other way, but I wouldn't fucking...
Test it.
Yeah, I wouldn't test it, that's for sure.
Just shut that door, sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Just because the rain in the background.
And the other thing about the keep your dog in the lead, to be completely honest, Fizz has killed 2 rabbits. But both times, she's been on the lead. Like, so it's not foolproof. Like, and I get the whole you've got to manage your dog. I totally get that, but it's not infallible.
Okay, so here's the devil's advocate question, because I know you're like a bit of a controversial thing. What do you think then? Okay, let's just say you had your time again, and you had used a tool to condition Fizz that sheep or rabbits make you very uncomfortable and make you very, very incite a level of pain. Do you think it would have made a difference?
Right, so that's a really good question. So let me set the scene for one of the examples of when she killed a rabbit. I've been man trailing. We've done a massive track, and on the way back, she was panting. She was like super happy, satisfied. She was on the lead. She was walking at the same pace as me because she was exhausted. And I'm like super chuffed, like look at me. And she literally just went bam, and had this rabbit in her mouth, and it was dead. Like she killed it, bam. Right, so there was no context for me to train anything, and it was incredibly instinctual. Now, in that example, I know that I can't create enough of an aversive response using reward-based techniques that she looks at the rabbit and goes, fuck that, I don't want nothing to do with it. Right? However, because it was so instinctual, I don't know that
if it would have a fact, it would correlate.
If it would work the other way either.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have the experience to say.
Yeah.
And like, I would like to have that conversation with somebody that does do that training on a regular basis, so I could learn more about it. But I don't because it wasn't like she went, bam.
Oh yeah. Oh, there's the rabbit. Oh, I know that rabbit caused me pain last time I looked at it. Like you said, it was
nothing. Like it literally just went, and she got it. So I don't know whether it was a movement thing or she thought because I was, but there was no sign of, there was nowhere for me to go leave it or even that the scent could be trained as a cue to. I think, in all honesty, it was instinctual and it was close and bam. And I don't know that you could do it the other way around. I don't have the experience.
Yeah, it's a. So I suppose in that that discussion, then you would be weighing up: does the ends justify the means? Because let's just say hypothetically, you went right, Fizz, I'm gonna, use an aversive tool to build up an association that whenever you see rabbits, you're gonna feel an extreme amount of pain, right? So let's go with that hypothetical. I suppose the playing devil's advocate, the discussion would be, or the conversation would be, that you would put that in so many situations where you proofed it so well, so you would set up the dog randomly walking in a field and the rabbit spontaneously turns up pain, discomfort, and you do that in so many different setups that the dog was so really genuinely believed that association was present irrespective. But then I would to my reinforcement-based head-on would go, well, if you've done that many scenarios from that, why not just do those scenarios and do it using reinforcement? Like, okay, if you're going to go through that rigorous of setting those up, like random rabbit in one field, random rabbit here, random rabbit, you go, well, why don't you just go through and then evaluate where that gets you. But it would be a really interesting conversation. It almost to have somebody that did it so proficiently to go, if you did all that work, let's just say that took you 6 months to achieve. Well, if I did 6 months with reinforcement, would it achieve the same outcome?
100%. I think that would be an amazing thing to test, and I would love to see it. But when people say, well, why don't you do it? I'm like, because I want to train my doing.
Because you'd have to you'd have to immerse yourself in that way of thinking. So, so what we as reinforcement, what we currently do is we teach a solid recall to the best of our ability, and we proof it in as many scenarios that we can replicate, and we then implement some management, and in order to say, right, sheep, I'm going to know where the sheep are, I'm going to avoid the sheep, I'm going to teach a good recall, and we hope that, like most people do, that our dogs are safe. Because I would also say that I've seen instances where people have used aversive tools for even sport, and it's failed.
Yeah, well, this is nothing is infallible. Nothing's infallible. Like, you can't say, well, this doesn't work, so try that, because that doesn't necessarily work either. Like, it's not a case of, like, one is gold and the other one isn't.
Absolutely. And I suppose the conclusion is, it's almost, I'm slightly intrigued by it. I'm just intrigued about, okay, how does that work and how would you implement that training process? And then test it of how, I suppose what
you did the same thing but with rewards. Yeah. Like there is a protocol that we have designed for predation, and like as I say, 90% of dogs, like they're not even going to get a third of the way through the protocol, and they're going to have a really reliable dog. They're going to be able to control the dog at a distance, various different positions, recalls, all that kind of stuff, all the good stuff. But I can't say that it will be like bulletproof. Because like there is, unless you're going to make that your thing, we don't know, and we haven't got enough people doing it. To have that kind of no problem. There's a 98% reliability rate. It just doesn't work like that. What I do know is that for the majority of dogs, especially pet dogs, you're laughing. You don't need it.
And I think that's you know, the conversation or the conclusion is that I think, like I say, for the vast majority of dogs, actually teaching them a really solid recall, teaching them some impulse control and some focus from you actually will probably get you out of most situations.
Yeah.
And that small instance when you go, right, I'm going to walk my dog in a flock of sheep because I feel like it, put it on a lead and or a muzzle and, you know.
But that's the thing, isn't it? Like I could do heel work with this through sheep.
Right.
Like I've used sheep as a distraction.
Right.
And I've taught downs and I've taught heel work and all that kind of thing. But that's not that's not predation.
Yeah.
Like that's control around a distraction, which is like.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean that's really not a problem. I can recall her off of them. I can realise, but when she's in predation, that's a different thing.
Yeah, and that's. But again, like, as I said, it is a different thing, and like we've discussed, it's the question. I suppose the discussion or the investigation would be if you immerse yourself with two identical dogs, so you took two siblings, two litter mates, same gender, identical in the part as much as you can, as near as possible, and one was trained using aversive tools and one was trained using reinforcement, and the same process was, i.e. you proofed them and you took them to different scenarios and you exposed them to different triggers and you counter-conditioned it however you choose to, or you built an aversive association, either or, and then you took it back and then you randomly tested, you set up scenarios. That would be the only way you'd be able to, and that's only one example. One, isn't it?
But it'd have to be a massive sample. And all the rest. Like there is a fellow in my club, Mondio Club, who has a Mallee, who is highly predatory. He uses an e-collar. He cannot stop his dog from attacking ball.
Wow.
Like, and he comes to every club every week, and he's like, "Fucking dog has."
Wow.
And that's a problem. Dog could fucking
be killed.
And he's not shy of using a tool like that. But he still can't stop it. Like it's not. I'm not voting here. I'm just saying like nothing is tested and nothing is completely bulletproof.
So obviously e-collars are still usable in Spain.
Oh yeah, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
Like they're everywhere. And one of the biggest reasons I don't get involved in it. In any kind of tool is because if I'm in a fight and I've got a knife on me, the statistics of me using that knife go up because I have a knife on me. Alright? And the same way that if I get frustrated in training, the likelihood of me using that tool through frustration goes up because I've got that tool. And I have seen many balance trainers in different places throughout the world use that tool through frustration, not as what it was originally intended or in their training system.
Absolutely, or even more simply, their timing's slightly out, or they, you know, as all of us have, you know, like, I was doing a little demo for SOCs earlier online, and I overshadowed, so simultaneously reinforced and that, because I was trying to talk and explain. In that little moment, my timing wasn't inch perfect. You go, and if I had a tool on my dog, that would be a fallout from that. You know, I've just effectively punished it or invoked. You know, you have to question it, wouldn't you? Whereas my dog just went, you know, that one off didn't matter. But if I was doing that on an infrequent basis, and especially if it was something that made the dog go, ouch, now the dog's going to enter the training session with that level of uncertainty, which for a low drive dog is going to make them worried. For a high drive dog, you're going to create that hyper-arousal, stressy type response. So it's worth considering. And this isn't the discussion really. I was interested to talk to Nando to go, are you up for talking about, you know, I suppose the conversation about using tools. So when it comes, okay, let's take it away from sports. What's your take on it then for behavioural problems? Right, your Cane Corso wants to not just isn't doing it out of fear. The dog goes, I want to eat that person.
That Corso was out of fear. Like, he was fucking terrified, which made the whole hiding thing a lot worse.
So hypothetically, he's doing it because we discussed there's some dogs.
He's offensively aggressive.
He goes,
he's just up for fucking terror. Like at this stage, I would go through the techniques that I know, and I think I would get as much reliability as I would using a tool like that. Like that's why I choose to train the way that I do. I think there are so many things that we can do nowadays, and if you can do it without it, then why would you choose to do it with? you know?
Yeah, that was the conclusion we both sort of drew. It's like, if you can take a different path and it gets you the end relationship that you, and it's not just, you know, to say that other people don't get, say, a relationship that they are comfortable and happy with, taking an alternative path, but it's definitely, let's tuck it down, it's definitely a choice that you've got, that has to sit well with you, doesn't it, really,
Yeah.
I suppose?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just mindful of the background noise. So there is some questions on here. So Anita Bragg asked, could Nando comment on the difference he has found in his relationships with his dogs since switching over? Because it's been quite a while. Let's just preface that by saying,
oh yeah,
what, 15 years?
No, I've only been in the game 16, 17 years.
Okay, so how long would you say?
So yeah, probably has been 15 years. Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Well, maybe a little bit less than that. So it's probably been about 13, 14 years, and I would say that I've got a much better relationship now than I did with the dogs from back then. But also, that's not necessarily just the training. That's also
you and your awareness.
Yeah, your awareness. You're
a more informed dog owner now. Yeah.
So like the Corso was fucking terrified of me. Like, he loved me, he adored me, but also, like, if I came in with the hump, he'd be like, fuck.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, he'd be like, I could be catching a hiding here.
Wow.
Like, so, I'm when I've got the ump, I'm quite overtly got the ump. It's not like I hide it.
Yeah.
So yeah, the relationship is definitely better, and a lot of that is probably down to training and the way that we train. But also now I train much more. I walk much more. The dogs are more free. Like, so it's a whole.
It's a holistic thing.
Yeah.
A good one. Good. People have made comments about guardian dogs. That's quite common practice in Spain, isn't it? Because we don't have them over here. People don't have guardian dogs over here for their sheep.
No, you don't have them over here at all. And it literally has stopped the problem.
Wow, really?
But I'm like, oh, okay.
Do you? What is it? Just a cultural thing?
Yeah, I think so.
Is it?
Yeah, I don't think you'd legally be able to get away with having livestock guardian dogs.
No, it would be interesting actually. I don't know anybody's got any experience with having, from that world, sheepdog world, raising sheep. Why you wouldn't have? Yeah, why wouldn't you have one over here?
Because I don't know. Probably because it would terrify people if they walk through the field. Because they do. They come over. They're loud. They're big. They're like.
So how is it legally standing? Let's just say you or your dog went over the threshold of the grazing sheep, and that dog went bam. Now the law would say what?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I think.
Chance it next week. Let us know. Do it live.
I think if they killed your dog or they bit your dog, you wouldn't have a leg to stand on.
Wow.
I think if you were troubling the sheep, you wouldn't have a leg to stand on. I don't know how it would stand if you were just walking and thing, but they don't, like, they stay at a distance from people.
Yeah.
So, like, in my experience, if I'm walking down the track and I come around the corner and there's sheep there, the dogs will come running down and go, whoa, 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 but they'll stop 10 feet away and be like, don't come closer.
Yeah.
Like, and I actually believe that if I walk straight through them, they'll just keep shouting at me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think they'd nail it.
Through.
Like, well,
I was going to say, let's find out. Tune in next week.
Can I have this dog?
Yeah. What we can do, exchange. We're talking about exchanging.
Yeah, you can swap it.
Okay. Well, one time our golden fever killed a rabbit. It was much the same. Bunny ran across the path and complete reflex. He went chomp. Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, you know, those anomalies, isn't it? That one-off learning that your dog can have. The next thing, you go down the same path, the dog's eyeballing for a rabbit. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I believe that... just lots of comments and so look. Anybody got any questions about? Anybody got any questions for Nando or myself about anything that we discussed? So you know, both of us are quite public about our choice in training, and but we've also, I think, quite been transparent about our path into using reinforcement-based dog training to train and rear the dogs that we currently have, and the path that we now choose to walk with our dogs. We're both obviously doing various dog sports and trying to train our dogs as best we can using reinforcement. I would say, again, another sweeping statement, is we've both been embraced and accepted by people that don't train quite like us in a really open-minded manner, which has been something, to be honest, that's instrumental, certainly for bite work. There's no way you could do it without the support of that club. Not
in Monday. There's no way. I don't know about other bite sports, but I know full well that without...
You'd be so limited, wouldn't you? You'd be so limited.
I train a lot of stuff on my own, and I put the foundations in, and but you need to proof various things, and I need people to help me proof it, and you need 2 decoys for starters. So I think without a team, it's a difficult game to play. Yeah. Go Google if you're interested about finding out about Mondio. Go and have a look on YouTube. It's a really, really, really interesting sport. It's on my to-do list. I will at some point in my career do it. I know. I keep on threatening to do it, but it is the time. It is the having moving parts. I'd love you to do Mondio. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I know. I talked about it with Suzanne, and we keep on talking about it. But one, in this country, it's not so accessible. No. You know, like you said, in Spain, it's super accessible. You know, like in Europe, it's so much more accessible than here, and you need the component pieces.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot you can train on your own, but you do need the support. And again, because it's not logistically close, I could travel. I mean, it's all excuses. But at the moment, it's on my to-do list, and But I seriously thought about it with the Schnauzer. I thought, do you know what?
I'd love that.
Yeah.
That'd have been awesome. So we have in Spain, we have a sport called ODM.
Yep.
Which is obedience demoniory. So there's no bite work element to it.
Yeah, a friend of mine, because they've got that in the States, haven't they?
Yeah, similar, really similar.
Yeah, and a friend of mine is doing it with her colleague, and she was telling me about it, and I was like, I could actually switch, because I've got a dog that's done trials training, so there's a lot of parallels, like to some of the things. I mean, obviously,
there is.
So I was like, I could do that with him, or I've got 2. So I was like, but it hasn't. I suppose if I was going to do it, I'd want to do the whole
Monday, But the beauty about the ODM stuff is that, like, for pet dog trainers that don't really necessarily want to get into dog sport competition, a lot of the skills transfer over, because it's not about precision, and it's about proofing. Can your dog retrieve? If you're a dog trainer, I would hope so. But can it retrieve under this distraction? Can it retrieve this item, this over a jump, over this, and it's just a constant change.
Is that that's the pull for you?
Oh, massively, massively. It's about the different levels of distraction. For me, the precision stuff has never really
floated your boat.
Not really. No. Interestingly, it's just not been my thing. But the dog has to retrieve a piece of wood. We'll often get the decoys to sit down and put the wood on the decoy. And the dog's got to control its arousal enough that it can search, bring the right piece back without nailing the decoy. So it's that kind of thing that I find really interesting. And those skills, you can totally transfer over to pet dog stuff. Like, if you've got a dog that can cope with that level of distraction, like all of a sudden being in the street or
becomes
down at the park, it's all easy. So,
that's one of the things we were saying about, a big massive gap in reactivity and reactive dogs is people, it's the education the dog receives, and really pushing that education, like the analogy being, the dog can do a retrieve of, a piece of wood, right? Can it do it on the sofa? Can it do it over a jump? Can it do it with a distraction? Can it do it with food on the floor? Can it do it up? Can it do it down? Can it do it left? Can it right? So you're taking the basic understanding and you're now testing it. And if you parallel that back to behaviour, okay, my dog can do a sit. Can it sit at a distance from another dog? Can it sit under distractions? Can it sit while the dog's moving? Can it sit while the dog's barking? Exactly. So if you apply that same logic to dealing with a behavioural problem, you could probably, help your dog get more confident, which is what you're saying.
100%.
Yeah. Let's have a look. So, a couple more questions. I'm just mindful of the time. So, how do you stop the reaction of a one-off learning? We had a cat in our garden now. She shakes, wanting to get out every day. Well, that's a good one.
Cheers.
Yeah.
You'd have to create a new expectation, because what's happened there is there's an expectation that there's going to be a cat in the thing, and the problem with that is that, like, for the next 10 times, if there's no cat, that doesn't outweigh the cat, because it only takes one more trial, and then, like,
bam, that's it.
Yeah, the dog's like, whoo.
Yeah.
So you need to create a new expectation. You can do that in loads of different ways. One of the ways is you might hide treats around the garden.
Yeah.
Let the dog go out. It go, where's the cat? Where's the cat? Oh look, the dog starts searching, and then each time the expectation of the cat comes down a little bit, but the expectation of searching goes up a little bit. So they're different contexts. So the arousal gets conditioned differently. The expectation changes, and you can slowly desensitize the dog in that fashion. But there's a ton of different ways that you could do that.
Yeah, and the something that often people don't utilize enough is the power of infrequent or variable reinforcement schedules. You know, the tendency when you're doing, certainly with behaviour, is to reinforce every single time, and actually you're doing yourself and the dog's learning a disservice, because actually it's the unpredictable nature of reinforcement that will create that, oh my god, that was different. So using Nando's example, you might sometimes have food in there, but you might then have, you know, something really, really ridiculously high value in there, or you might have the food in a pouch, so when the dog finds it, there's another added twist to that. Yeah. So now the dog goes out there with, this is different, this is novel, which is essentially what the cat created. That, oh my god, this is a one-off experience. You apply that, and sometimes you go out there, there'd be nothing hidden. The dog's expecting it. There's no treats. Yeah. Next day there'd be, you know, a chicken wing and a sock hanging from a tree, hypothetically. You know, so the dog goes, oh my god, this is a fun game. And you're switching, like you said, putting the dog away from cats and making it slightly different. Okay. Oh, apparently somebody farm to fork use LGD in the UK. I'm assuming that's
livestock dogs.
Oh, that's interesting. Thank you for that, Debbie. Okay. Somebody said, Aversive work my hedgehog, they prick their nose. Geraldine, I know Geraldine. Whatever you do with your pricks, Geraldine, it's up to you. I don't need to know. So other than that, I think that's about it. So, spontaneous conversation with Nando, which hopefully has been interesting, talking about tools and, you know, why we choose the path that we have with our dogs. You know, I think the thing to be clear is we've obviously both have come from a different way of thinking. We've both changed our training philosophies, but thankfully we both are able to keep those channels open with people that may not train the same as us, because we have remained open-minded. Nando's grown in that, and you've become more open-minded, and would you say definitely?
Yeah, I've become open-minded. It's not that I've become less
combative.
Yeah, less combative.
Yeah.
But also, like, it just doesn't, like, when I'm like fucking gung-ho and all the rest of it, I've got a load of people going, yeah, go on, Nando. But actually, I've not changed anybody's fucking mind.
Really?
But I genuinely feel like going to nationals, like, because I go and they go, you do that, you don't train with a prong, and I'm like, no, I don't, and they're like, fair play, like how? And I'm like, well, you know, just it's a different system, and and there's this almost like this curiosity. They're like, oh, I didn't realise you could do it that long. Like, because that's the way it's always been done. And Mondia's big in Spain. Like, it's more common than obedience.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it's more like, I know of more Mondio competition, more Mondio clubs. Obviously, I'm in that world, but more Mondio clubs local to me than there are agility clubs.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a thing. Like,
wow.
So, just, I think without people actually doing it, I think that's the best way for other people to become open-minded as well.
Yeah, that's you know, that's such a, you know, we talked about this as well in our conversation, sometimes off camera, sometimes on camera, about your watching as an observer and your trajectories in this world, so to speak, and how you've really, you know, props to you, you've changed and how you've grown as you know, various things, but it's really quite, I mean, as I said to you earlier, and it's not just saying for the effect of camera, I said it to you prior, you know, I tip my hat to you because you've sort of really evolved as a trainer and as somebody who was very much, like you say, a bit raw about the whole thing, and how you've gone, actually, do you know what, I'm just going to do my thing and demonstrate and show.
You did also call me a twat.
We don't want to quibble over But anyway, on that note, listen, I appreciate it. It's been a great conversation. It's been really fun having Nando here today. I've loved running around after him and making him breakfast and sorting out his blue M&Ms, but other than that, no. But if you're interested in what the School of Canine Science, check out School of Canine Science online. I will share the link there. Obviously, I'm launching Relabeling Reactivity. If you're interested in Relabeling Reactivity, I will share the information about that and to sign up. But obviously, Nando puts stacks of stuff online. He's really transparent about his training journey on Nando. What is your YouTube?
Incredimal.
Incredimal.
Yeah.
Check that out again. I will share it on here. But check out Incredimal. And obviously, anything that I do, you're more than welcome to have a look at. I will, if you've stumbled across this, just punting around the internet. But yeah, hope this has been an interesting conversation. Thank you all for your listening. Yeah, see you later.
See you guys.